Welcome to the very first podcast of BioEE 1780, Evolutionary Biology and Biodiversity. So, this is the first podcast of this course, and I just want to point out that these serve to introduce topics before you come to class so you can spend class time on more constructive activities. Of course, your opinion really matters to us, so there will be lots of opportunities for you to tell us whether you like them or how we could make them better for you. This podcast is going to focus on some terms that you'll hear again and again during the course. I'm going to start with terms associated with phylogenetics, or what you'll often hear referred to as tree thinking. A phylogeny is a visual representation of the evolutionary history of populations, genes, or species. Phylogenetic trees are important ways that we as scientists consider and depict the history of life on this planet. Phylogenies illustrate evolution as looking similar to a tree in that it gives rise to branches and leaves that can be traced backwards to a common tree node or ancestor. So in this example, we are looking at a primate tree, right? Humans and chimps share a common ancestor here, while humans and gibbons share a common ancestor here, while all primates share a common ancestor here. Now, this phylogeny says nothing about the timing of splitting events of these separate groups, but just shows the relative relationship between them, right? The tips of the tree represent groups of descendant taxa, and these are often species, but not always, like in the current tree example. They can also represent genes or molecules or populations being compared. Branches are lineages evolving through time between successive speciation events, or out to the tips of the tree. The arrows point to examples of branches on our primate tree. Now, I mentioned this term before. Nodes are points in a phylogeny where a lineage splits. This is also known as a speciation event. In this class, we're going to discuss speciation events in depth, but for now, just know that speciation events result when populations become subdivided to the point where individuals in these two populations are no longer able to interbreed or exchange genes. In a phylogeny, this is depicted as one branch splitting into two. So at some point between 5 to 6 million years ago, the common ancestor shared by chimps and humans diverged into two different species. And that branch in their evolutionary tree split into two. A clade is a group of organisms consisting of a common ancestor and all of its descendants. And so in this red box here, I've circled a clade that consists of the ancestor of chimps and humans plus all of their descendants. Here's another example. Here's another example. Is this an example? Probably not, right? So this isn't a clade because it does not include the ancestor, illustrated by the arrow, and all of that ancestor's descendants. A monophyletic group is one containing an ancestor and all of its descendants. Of course, this is just another term for a clade. And this is an image showing different monophyletic groups, or clades. And we will be using these two terms pretty interchangeably through the course. So this next concept I'm going to briefly discuss is a problem that students always have every year, and so I want you to take some time and really try to absorb this concept. And that is that when you're looking at a phylogeny, that the most basal group of organisms is going to be on one side of the tree, and the most advanced or derived group of organisms is going to be on the other side of the tree. And that's just simply not true. And so what this image is depicting is that you can swivel branches at their nodes. And that doesn't affect clades or the relationship between whatever groups are being represented by the tips of the tree. So these three images that we see above, they're all showing the exact same relationships between the groups of organisms on the tips of the branches. So just remember that you can swivel these branches at their nodes, like those in the images above, and that doesn't change anything about the relationships or the phylogeny itself. You can also draw trees in lots of different cool ways, and again, that doesn't affect clades or relationships between the different groups being represented at the tips. And so here's group A, B, C, and D depicted in all sorts of cool different ways, and all of these phylogenies are showing the same relationships.